Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of True Crime Incorporated. And this is probably the most important topic we have done on this particular website because we're gonna deal with some controversy, and a lot of times people don't feel comfortable with that because they want very clear-cut answers, and there's times where there isn't clear-cut answers. I'm Joseph St. John. I spent about 30 years in the law enforcement, and I know some people may find it weird, but here's the truth. Um, Even though as the police, I'm not all about law and order in the sense that we need to punish people um, unrealistically or punish people that do not need to be punished. Okay. We do know we have a jail system. We know that there are prison systems, and we know there are people that are incarcerated. That is not a free reign to do whatever you want to people. And I know sometimes people have trouble with that. And I think if we can do this, and we're going to talk to Rita and Kristle, and we're going to get some things done here, but keep an open mind. And Kristle, I'll let you introduce your friend after you introduce yourself.
I'm Kristle. I work for a local attorney here in Allegan, RJ Baker and Associates, Robert Baker. He is not only my boss, but my stepdad, and I've been doing it for about 8 years now. Prior to that, I was a nursing home social worker, and I've made my way to where I'm at now. And
You
then,
bet.
huh?
Go ahead.
And then I've got my cousin Jordan Bills, who is an RN and works in the medical field in adult foster care, assisted living type situation, providing medical needs and care for them. She's also worked in the local Allegan County Jail for a period of time and got to see the jail systems at the, old local yokel type
Yes.
facility.
And let me clarify for everybody, when we get in here and talk about the prison system, there is not going to be a bigger, more not good situation than medical and people's health. And regardless of what you believe on, prisoners or whatever, I'm not even asking you to keep an open mind. I'm just asking you to be human. If you take people and, they are incarcerated, you do owe a sense of you have to take care of them. And just sitting there going, oh, it's okay if somebody is sick. Horror stories about people having minor things happen to them, turning into big things. And then even people who, because of lack of medical care, die. Okay. And these people didn't have death sentences. Okay. And one thing before I introduce Rita, who really is just an outstanding person on these topics, is this. Just because somebody got in trouble, or just because you feel that somebody has had a situation that maybe isn't good, it does not mean they don't have rights. And that's what we're focusing on here. They have rights. Okay. Just like you have rights. And if there's anybody that doesn't have rights, then guess what? Then we all don't have any rights. Okay. Now, would your friend like to say something, Chris?
Oh, what did I say?
Would you like to say something?
She said it's called the justice system.
Yeah, the justice system.
Yes.
Justice system did its job. It is not corrections officers' job to punish these people. It is not nurses' jobs to punish these people. It is the justice system doing its job, and then we have to care for them once they're in our system. It's, it's not our job to punish them. They are human beings who deserve care too.
And if one person's rights are being problematic, then we all have to worry about our rights. Rita, you have done a lot in a short period of time, and I'm very, very proud of you. But I want you to do me a favor. Tell everybody, we're going to have a link down here to connect you to her YouTube channel too. So, any of these things like that, we're going to have a link there. But Rita, tell everybody who you are and just some of the cases, because one of the subtitles of this is going to be, why is everybody so angry? And people are very angry because they just do not feel that there's a lot of systems going on in our country that seem to be falling short. And I don't want to, act like it's not happening. It is. But tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of all the things that you're doing, because it's very impressive.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. My name is Rita Williams. I am the founder of Clutch Justice. It's a podcast that is restorative in nature. We do humanizing true crime. We look at the why behind the crime of why did somebody do what they did? What are their motives? What was the brain science? What's the data? The biggest problem I see with our criminal justice system today is that we don't look at data. We measure off of conviction. We don't measure off of what are we really doing to make a difference. So I have a master's in criminal justice, but I'm also a certified forensic mitigation specialist, which means it's my job to help humanize somebody once they're in the system, because there is no humanizing element in the system as it stands today. So you need people like me to help make that happen. And you want people like me on your side, because the system will chew you up and spit you out if you don't have someone like me behind you. And, one of the biggest things that I've learned and that I keep hearing through the system is we need lawyers who are good mitigation minded individuals, which I have to say, Robert he does an excellent job with that. He's always looking at the why. And, he's top notch. But anyway, back to me. I am also incarceration impacted. My husband is incarcerated right now. And it was going down this rabbit hole of I had just finished my master's degree when we got dragged into the system, and everything that I thought I knew was wrong. And it was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. And then I became a little bit just as impacted too. We'll save that story for another day.
Yeah, we'll have a whole episode on that story.
We'll come back around to that.
Rita, one thing I want to point out, and I want you to make another comment on this, is for people that are not familiar with our legal system and the prison system, it's very easy to go to the worst scenario. Meaning you go, oh, these people are in prison. They're all child molester, murderers, horrible people, people you do Lifetime movies on. But that's not the average person that's actually incarcerated. Give a little bit on that.
That's true. There are way more wrongful convictions behind those walls than you think, number one.
Right.
Because there is every incentive for prosecutors and judges to rack up their numbers, because that's how they get funding. So what happens is you have people who aren't necessarily guilty being bullied into the police system, which, even it was Supreme Court Justice Kennedy said, our system is the police system. They will bully you until you take a deal, unless you go to trial. And even if you go to trial, there is what's called the trial penalty. So we have a system that isn't, 100% fair, dragging people through. So it's really important that you pay attention to what's actually happening and, treat people with kindness, because your rights, the way that you so eloquently put it at the beginning, your rights are at stake too. And most of the people going through the system, it's habitual offenders for drug use. We punish people for addiction in this country. We don't treat it meaningfully. It's also people who have had, let's say, brain injuries, severe traumas and abuse in their life. And we're not looking at brain science when we sentence. That's one of the biggest issues. We need to remember that those things are going on in the background.
I think we've turned our...
Go ahead.
I think we've turned our system, our criminal, MDOC, local jails, they are our mental health institutions now. I don't know how it is state to state, but Michigan closed how many facilities? There's
it was across the country.
Right, across the country. There's 2 long-term facilities in Michigan, which honestly I wouldn't recommend as a punishment for my worst enemy, let alone who just is looking for a place to stay off the street. I wouldn't recommend that they go there. And we closed all these mental health facilities because they weren't successful at doing their job instead of adding funding. And then we overloaded the criminal system with people that just have mental health issues.
Yeah. Two things on that. Number one, the average person in jail is getting out. I want everybody to understand that. They're getting out. This is not the episode of this
Life
is not an
offenders.
episode about the murderer that's got 3,000 years. Okay. The truth is, most of these people are getting out. So the question is, are there better people? And again, not trying to get too far in the future, I do think there's something where we do need to bring in the failure, and that's a whole episode of the mental health aspect of our country. And anybody that thinks there's this little magical box where the police or social worker or anybody that intervenes, there's this nice, safe, clean place to take people that are in crisis, that is not true. And there's a very good chance, even if you could find it, they're not staying there long.
That's exactly true. And you can actually trace this back to the 70s during that whole time where mental health institutions were closing. I can't remember the name of the book. I'll have to get it to you because I can't remember the title offhand, unfortunately. But there's actually like that direct pipeline of we shut down mental health institutions and then suddenly what happens but tough on crime.
Do you know it's a book, and I don't think it was the one you were talking about because it's fiction, but it was a movie that was pretty popular. And it was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And the truth is, early on in my life, when I got interested in law enforcement, people brought that book up where it was like the mental health in that book, if you're not familiar with the movie or the book, was horrible. Okay. I mean, you know, for a long time, if you said Nurse Ratchet when you were in the hospital, everybody knew what you meant. Okay. But here was the problem, and people told me this, was we threw the baby out with the bathwater. Meaning nobody ever said that was the way to handle mental health crisis. But when you replace it with nothing in many communities, what do you deal with? And anybody that does law enforcement or involved in any of this stuff will tell you there is a mental health crisis. Okay.
Absolutely.
You know, and I like the idea about the brain science and everything, but if you think that people are just making excuses, that's really not it. There is really a mental health crisis. Okay. And we have to deal with it.
I got Jordan over here squirreling, digging out all of her books.
She did what?
Digging out her books that are related to the mental health crisis.
Tell her to do that and make sure we get the link so I can send it there, because I do think if you care about a criminal justice system, you have to understand the totality of what's occurring. I don't want to get into the battle of who won the drug war against drugs. I don't want to get into that, but I do feel comfortable to go, wow, we do have a drug problem and have had one for, I don't know, forever, as long as I've been alive. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Kristle, a little bit here, because I know you are very good at your job. But explain to how, because we're not talking about the worst of the worst criminals sometimes. We're talking about people who did something wrong or were accused of it. Explain what it's like when they first come to your office and they come in to talk to Robert Baker, what is going on in their head.
I mean, we see people at their absolute worst. And it's honestly, they come in broken down. Even the clients that we have that are, you know, your average hardworking, upper class, you know, citizen, they come in and they are just absolutely beaten down already because they got in trouble or because shit in their life hit the fan and they're in whatever situation with the criminal system that they are. And it is probably one of the worst days of their life.
Yes.
So, you know, yes, they are paying money to retain us to help them. It's not always easy because we get the anger, we get the hostility.
That's right.
that is focused on the system that we have in place, but there's no outlet for it other than the people they're paying to take care of it. So Robert always starts off telling our clients when he's talking to them, I'm your attorney. I'm not your counselor. I'm not your priest. I'm not your mom. I'm not your dad. I'm not your friend. But at the end of the day, we become
Oh, you
each and
do. You
every
become all of those things. You can say what you
each and
want to
every
on
one of
day
those
one.
things. Right. And when those of us in the office, physically in the office, can't handle one of those positions that our client needs in order to make it through whatever situation we're helping them through, that's where our island of misfit toys all come in. And, I called Joe in and say, Joe, I need you to make contact with this client and handle X, Y, and Z and, help focus this.
Because we try, and I'll tell you something, and for everybody, let me point something out if you never worked in an attorney's office. This abyss that they go into, and I'm even talking about divorces. We won't get personal, but divorces. When things go wrong, these people don't snap out of it in 15 minutes. This is their lives that are being attacked.
Well, and the system sucks them into it.
Yeah. And there's, so when you get into this, it's very important for those that have not experienced some of this that we're talking about to understand this isn't a 15-minute funk they're in.
Right. Well, and it's like you said, it's not your lifetime criminal.
No,
it's not. I can't tell you the amount of people that we have come in our doors that it is the first time they've been in trouble, and they're well into their adult years.
Yeah.
First time being in trouble, and they are looking at losing everything because of it. Because the system is as much as we preach that the system is made to reform, to teach you your lesson and let you move on, that's not, it's a money-making scheme. And unfortunately, even though we preach to everybody that you're innocent until you're proven guilty, I've already had to have conversations with my 10-year-old about the fact that things they are telling her at school are not true. And if anybody says those things to you, you tell them, I know my rights, and I am not doing this until my pa gets here. When you talk to my attorney, who is my pa, and he tells you that that's the conversation we're having, we can have it. But I politely decline until then.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're teaching they're teaching our kids, these things.
George Carlin said they want you to be smart enough to work the equipment, but not smart enough to know what's going on.
Yes.
It's kind of is that's paraphrasing. It's like they want you to be smart enough to work equipment, because you got to be productive. But as far as letting you know what's going on, no. And it's weird because as people go, and I want to piggyback on some of Rita's experiences with her other things. It's just little things where you would think, okay, we have the right, or it's in policy that you will meet people's dietary needs. That doesn't mean you don't feed people. Okay. And
well,
Rita,
unless you're in
a little bit
the
on that.
System.
Go a little bit on that one about even something as simplistic as that can turn into a nightmare.
So my friend Tasha, her husband right now, Kareem, he's in the Upper Peninsula, incarcerated right now, and he can't even get, a proper Muslim diet. They're feeding him, subpar food, or, what seems like scraps almost of like, oh, here you go, here's an orange and some carrot sticks.
Yeah.
They're not addressing, religious meals. Which to some people that might seem like, oh, that's not really a big deal. But again, it goes back to that concept of the minute that you let one thing slip, that's when you start giving your rights away, and you have to fight for those things.
Yeah. It sounds corny, But the whole thing I was told when I was growing up about the slippery slope, they're like, if you let one thing slide, I can't tell you how many times I heard my parents say that, right?
Right.
I was like, if you tolerate one thing, don't be surprised if a bunch of other stuff comes on. It sounds corny and preachy, but it's actually very true. That slippery slope exists. And if we don't, at least stand up for people and kind of bring it to attention, I'm never, when I'm doing this, I never feel like I'm defending people. What I feel like I'm doing is trying to educate people. That people understanding, and here's the fool's gold that people have. I'm not in trouble. I would never get in trouble. Yeah, with your kids.
Joe.
I
Everybody
didn't say that was me. I just said some people. But what about your kids?
Yeah, they're one bad day away, one mental health emergency, one mistake, one wrong identification away from prison at any given time. Your freedom is fragile, extremely fragile.
And we should be, and like I said, for all of us that are adults, we should be genuinely concerned about that, because I don't want to see you basically have your life destroyed for a mistake you made. And again, we're not talking serial killers here, people. We'll do a whole look. Robert, full disclosure, the attorney, and me have a website called Two Average Joes. And we talk about true crime all the time. So I'll have a link down there if you want to talk about murderers, okay? Or unsolved crime and stuff. We'll be glad to do that. But you better understand, that's not the average person who is in jail. Okay? And some of them, go ahead.
What's the saying, or what's the statistic out there that on average, all of us, every single person breaks
I forgot how many laws it is
it's
in
like
a day.
at least 7 laws a day that could lead to us interacting with the criminal justice system. Like it's a number that you wouldn't, thinking about your day and what you've done, you would not think that you've done it, but
you've done it.
You've done it.
Listen, let me tell you something, and this is kind of a weird situation. You could be a very, very good person, and given the right set of circumstances, you could find yourself dealing with the criminal justice system. And if you do not have your ducks in a row, it could go very bad.
Well, and
I'm
even
not
if you
telling
do
you to keep
even if you
attorney.
do have the ducks in a row, the criminal justice system will come in and shake those suckers right up for you.
Rita, go ahead. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, Rita. We're going to do a whole episode on Rita.
True story. Ask me how I know.
Different story, different day, Rita.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, and let me share something. You don't have to do. Let me clarify something. You don't have to be a bad person, because I think people get lost into that, the bad person.
Right.
To do something that could get yourself in trouble with the legal system.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even mentioning your kids or your spouse or whatever. I've seen in all the years that I had there doing law enforcement, I've seen people who were, by every definition, a good person. But they had a bad run of luck. And I'm just going to call it that. Though luck is probably not the word. It's just some bad decisions. And so they're in jail, and you're going to make them worse than they were when they got there. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about, because this isn't the first or last. We have spoke about this first time on camera, but this will not be the last time we talk about it, and we'll be on camera again, because this is important to all of us in this room. I see your friend, whose name I forgot because I'm an old man.
Jordan. She has a whole stack of books here that
did she have something she wants to say about the books?
I mean, no, not necessarily. But I feel like they're not like necessarily leaning towards the criminal justice system. However, they explore the minds of individuals. This one is more on serial killers, which we're talking about anyone that commits crimes, but
Yeah.
it explores the minds of human beings that will commit crimes,
And
but
don't,
what that looks like for them.
yeah. And don't anybody misunderstand me.
Yes.
I do want to know what makes people tick. Okay. What, that's why we're all interested in serial killers, because we want to know what makes people tick. Okay.
How close am I to being
Right.
in that
Yes, yes.
position? Because some days, today,
Yeah.
it could happen.
Yeah. I'll tell you the other thing too. And it's weird because one day we may do this. I would like to do it, is really break down the conceptual feeling of how drug use can take normal everyday people and cause them to be now having mental problems. And that's legitimate. That's not excuses.
I have plenty of those.
Well, and even taking it one step further, not to oversimplify it, but what simple life situation that was solvable,
Yes,
with the right help, led to that addiction, that problem, which led to
right.
being sucked into the system and getting no help. Because honestly, that's one thing that we see here in Allegan is, if you are somebody who has no criminal history, okay, first time getting in trouble because you had a bad run of luck, like you said, you decided to go get some cocaine and you went on a bender or some other, whatever your drug of choice was, and you get caught, you get hit with the hammer. Whereas
Life is over.
right, your life is over because of a bad day. But then you have the people in our community who that is their lot in life right now, is being an addict, and they are begging and yelling and screaming that all they need is help. And they get sucked into the court system, and the court system says, fines and costs, which we know you can't pay in probation. Bye. And wonder why they're back in 6 months. And then they do the same thing. And they don't do anything to fix the problem because they know they're going to be back. They know it's going to take too much time and expense and energy and actually giving a shit in order to help a fellow citizen fix the problems that are going on.
We're running modern day debtors prisons is what we're doing.
Yeah. I'm going to share this with you, and I think, Rita, I'm going to piggyback on what you said, then I want you to say some more about it. Money matters. There's nothing I hate more than when somebody goes, money don't matter. It's not just about the money. Well, apparently you ain't been to the grocery store lately. Because you can load up all the carts you want, but if you don't have any money, you can't take it. Okay? And there is this weird, it's not just mental health, and I don't want to dismiss that. But there's this part where once you get into there and you've lost your financial aspects, regrouping is not what you think it is when you don't have any cash.
It absolutely
Money
is.
talks.
Money talks, and it talks through our bail system. It talks through, because we have people who sit there on low-level charges, incarcerated, they lose their jobs, they lose their livelihood, when they could have been out, making money, supporting their families, and then you're creating generational poverty and trauma.
Right.
So it goes around and around, and that's how you have a system that continues to stay broken, and the rich get richer and poor people go to prison.
Right. It's weird. I'm not inclined to share a lot of stories where somebody told me something, because sometimes you have to be careful, especially when you get to be my age. This is for Kristle. When you get to be my age, not to start telling war stories. But I have one to tell, so I'm going to tell. Okay? I remember we were doing a lot of drug abuse resistance education. That's there, by the way. And we were talking about drugs, and we were talking about stuff, and you know, everybody's realistic. It came down to people getting arrested. Fair enough. I mean, that's where the conversation was. And the person said something, and I remember it, and I remember it clearly. She goes, you know, the problem is if you're pretty working class or your finances aren't high, there's not a lot of interventions for your kids. And if you have some money, you can send them to camps and the schools. And now, if you go to Netflix, most of those camps and schools are horrible, at least if you hear the people that went. But guess what? They're right. You could functionally remove your kid from the situation. And even though there's 2 years, they lived a horrible life while they were on the camping trip from hell, right? You know, using the Netflix stuff. But you do know you removed them from the process.
You know, I agree with that to an extent, but I grew up in Petoskey, Michigan, which is
metropolis that I like to
Richie rich, you know, money most definitely fucking talks. But the people that I went to school with, they had expensive addictions.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't that there were no addictions. You know, I have lost several classmates that I graduated with to Oxy. You know, back then that was a high dollar drug. And I just turned 39, and I've lost several classmates already to addictions such as Oxy. Or they start off on that path and now they are your crack addicts and committing other crimes and have fallen down the social ladder.
There's no doubt about that.
It just means that being in the high end, having parents or having family or having yourself having money to take care of those issues, it just means you buy your way out of it. I don't think it means it doesn't.
Oh, it comes back to bite them. You can tell when
it still exists. Right.
I'd agree 100%. They got out of the situation for a moment.
Right.
Yeah, but it comes back to bite them. Because, you know, one of the weird things, and yes, I remember this. I was there when crack got to be very big, right? What threw people off is up until that point, cocaine was extremely expensive. And you changed the dollar value of it, and other people started doing it. But the reality of it is you can't buffer yourself from the problems that our society has. You can't buffer. You can have all the money that you want in the world and you think you could solve everything, but eventually you can't get yourself out of enough trouble once you just enter the system.
Right.
I think that's where the saying, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yeah. And it's just, you know, it's one of the things that maybe the three of us need to really think about, though, is to bring somebody in, as Rita likes to call it, and talk about the brain science. Okay. And I'll explain to you why, Kristle, because you and I have had a million conversations. This is the first time we just did it on here. We've talked about this stuff a million times, right? And you said something that I wanted to really push on, because I agree with you. Everybody that's listening to this knows somebody that was a fairly good, whatever you want to call it, person, whatever you want to phrase it. And after years of drug abuse, they're not even the same people.
Right. Yeah, it's altering the composition of your brain.
Yeah, and it does.
It mostly attacks judgment centers and memory. So then you have people who are completely strung out, and there is nothing left, you know, of those logical thinking centers anymore.
No.
So it really just tears people down. And so you're not dealing with the same person anymore.
No.
You're dealing with a brain that's makeup has changed.
Yeah. And if you think that incarcerating them and depriving them of medical attention and food is going to help, you're probably, I'm comfortable with that assessment. You're wrong.
You started off with 20 or 22 problems, and now you got 99 of them.
Yeah, it's the truth. I can think of people when I was in high school, and I'm going to be generic here because I don't want to. The one time they listen to me, think he's talking about me. I'm not talking about anybody specifically, but I knew that I watched. Yeah, the shoe fits, right? I watched them in the short time from 16 to 19 become somebody completely different because of drugs and the fact that nobody intervened.
Mm-hmm.
And it does become criminal. But yet I couldn't be, look, I'm 16 when this starts and I'm understanding it. Right? I mean, I'm like a 16-year-old kid and I'm going, hey, so-and-so, yeah. What do you mean they got into somebody's house? They took somebody's bike. I'm like, anybody think that maybe there's a problem here? You might want to intervene. Because when you wait for him to be 19 and he really goes to jail, now you really got a problem.
Right. Well, and now everybody's going to intervene now that you're an adult and we can throw the book at you.
Yeah, they're going to intervene, but it ain't the type you need.
Right.
So, it's weird because just this has been a great conversation, but it's every time I have one, whether it's with Rita or you, Kristle, or, a lot of our other friends, every time I do this, I'm thinking, wow, we got about 50 more things we need to talk about. And I hope that we can do that. I mean, I'm serious. Maybe 50 is a high number, but probably not. But we do need to sit down there and start talking about that. And maybe bring some people in there a little bit more of an expert on it. But Rita, I'm going to be honest with you, the whole brain science thing and the whole what's happening to reason is important. Then Kristle, I don't know if we could talk enough about where their life is.
Right.
When you have it being destroyed. And do not think, people, that their life's not destroyed. And some of the people really haven't done anything, or it's not worth destroying their whole life.
Correct.
There we go. Look, I appreciate everybody being here. For the books, send me some links because people need to. I think there's a lot of people that care. I want to try not to be negative. I don't want to go like, hey, nobody understands. I think a lot of people understand. There's people, by the way, that you talk to every day that you think haven't got any problems, and they got plenty of problems.
I think a lot of people have the capacity to understand the situation right now because of what they have been force fed. They have a false understanding. But I think there's a large majority of our population that is willing to be educated and to learn and wants to know what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's shedding the light on the dark and dirty and
people want to see the underbelly. This is my opinion. And I think I learned this just dealing with police work for as long as I did. People say they want to see the underbelly of the world, but they're lying. They really don't. Because I can tell you, I would tell people stuff. It's like, look, to be honest with you, you have to make sure your kids and stuff don't get pulled into certain situations because there's actually people who are predators and take advantage of that.
Joe, can you give me a you can't handle the truth?
They cannot handle the truth. Let me clarify that. And it's weird. But you see, Rita gets slapped with it in the face. I've been slapped with it in the face just watching it. Kristle, everybody who works in your office gets slapped in it in the face every day. So we can't pretend it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
We just can't.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
No, you don't unsee it.
You don't get to unplug. It's being red pilled, right?
No. Whatever pill it is, you can't undo. No, and be honest with you can't undo it. You just go.
Well, and the people that do unplug and do disassociate from it, they are the problem.
No, they are.
No, I'm not.
You know, one thing I found, and this is going to sound weird, but at some point when I was doing law enforcement, and I'm talking about in my normal life, I'm out coaching baseball or I'm doing something. You know, I found myself as years progressed that I didn't feel like I necessarily was interested in trying to educate the world. Because there's that part where you can get frustrated on the other end, like what we're trying to do, because we've seen it and we can't turn it off.
Right.
Right. And then you got somebody going, well, if you do the crime, you got to do the time. What is that? I don't remember that in the Constitution.
Right.
I don't remember that.
What's this Constitution that you speak of, Joe?
Is it something to reflect about? No, I thought it was really something we took serious.
But
Weird.
But when they stop teaching the kids about it, and start hiding it at a young age.
Yeah. You know, one of the worries I have, and this is a social worry, not just a prison worry. I think we like to be told what makes us feel good. That's what we like. There's people that I can talk to them. I said, yeah, you don't really believe that. It just makes you feel good. Right? It makes you feel good. You know, if everybody's created equal and we have the same opportunity, that makes you feel good. It ain't true. And when God bless you, it does make you feel good. And I go back to that George Carlin thing where I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, just be smart enough to work the equipment, but you're not going to be smart enough to figure this out.
Right.
You know, and no, I don't expect everybody to agree with us, but I will guarantee you this: we didn't say anything that wasn't true today. You know, one of the things I always like is because people get carried away and they'll go, these guys are all watching TV, eating like steak. I'm like, no. But my favorite one is, and I've said it on another episode of another show, they got better insurance than I do. Let me explain something. If they got better health care than you do, you need another insurance provider. Okay? Because these guys ain't getting jack.
Here's a great way to break that down for those who say that kind of thing.
Right.
So number one, there's people that are almost purposefully being killed in the system. But number two, the cost of a copay here in Michigan for an inmate to go see a provider is $5. Most of these people make pennies a day.
Yeah.
It's about a quarter to half of their paycheck to go to the doctor one time.
Yeah.
One time.
We need to revisit
they don't screw up when you go see them.
Yeah. Put an otoscope through their eardrum.
Right.
We need to revisit this too, because just for people that don't know the history of it, actually at one point they were able to make a little money to pay for things and stuff. And basically what they want to do is dump it all on their family or dump it on somebody else. And here's the deal. A lot of these guys don't come from families that have that kind of money. You know,
right.
So it's a complicated thing.
It also creates, again, that generational trauma and poverty of now you are taking parents off of the street that could be working, that could be doing work release, that could be on tethers or probation.
Right.
And you're turning them into deadbeat parents. That's the reality.
No, make no mistake. And everything can't be about making people suffer.
Right.
And yet, and everybody here that knows this, and we deal with it every day and dealt with it, we know there are people that they enjoy people suffering. Okay. And that's what you got. I want to thank y'all guys for being here today. This is not the last one. But if you want to know why people aren't happy, just listen to this thing
listen
again.
to us. We'll tell you.
We'll tell you why people are not happy. Because I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot of people that know these systems are not to be trusted. Okay. And that there are situations that could be bad, that there are bad connotations to them, but you've turned bad into horrible and awful.
And then you release them out into society.
Yeah, then you just tell them, hey, go back out. And from what I understand, that isn't a big program. I think they just tell you you're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Right.
Good
Yeah,
luck.
prison doesn't do anything but teach people how to be prisoners.
Mhm.
You know, we actually worried about that from the law enforcement side of teaching you to be a criminal, meaning you already sent somebody to prison. They did something wrong, allegedly. Okay. And now you sent them in there with people so they can learn.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you something. If you didn't do anything bad, but you just spent 5 years doing hard time, you're not the person you were when you went in.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
And if you can't understand that, come back. We're going to do more programs on that. I thank y'all for being here. Rita, I'm very proud of you again about your blog and what you're doing. There's going to be links down there. You'll see, I'll put down the 2 Average Joe links. Kristle and I have been on a couple together, but more importantly, I want us to kind of do what we did here today and maybe be able to figure out bringing somebody else who could just say, hey, look, here's the science of it. You know, these people here aren't lying. They've dealt with it. Okay, this is the science of it. So look, I appreciate everybody. I thank you. If you like this show, do me a favor.
What do you do, Jordan?
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. That's right. And now we'll do that. But look, I thank everybody, and we will talk together real soon. Thank y'all very much.
Have a good night, guys.
Have a good night.